culture is super important. That's one of the things that, we're close to 1,500.
Sacha Michaud from Glovo is here. Another warm welcome, okay?
Thanks. First of all, thanks. It's an honor. I'm so glad you invited me. It's a great city, great country, super enthusiastic.
Yeah. So when did you first? I'm going to go a little sideways. When did you first hear about Georgia? Did you always know Georgia existed, or is it more of a recent? As an American, I didn't know Georgia. Yeah.
You hear about it on the news, sometimes maybe not for the right reasons. But what's real is there's a little bit of a buzz about Tbilisi, not necessarily from the business side yet, but more friends of mine have been here and said it's an amazing, holiday. And so for personal reasons, it's was out there, and it's been a couple of years I've had it in the back of my mind. So there's a bit of noise about Tbilisi. Let's hope we can do something similar with the business side of things.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is if you connect with good people, good things happen, I think. So I think there's a lot of potential there. So speaking of good things happening, wow, Glovo, what a ride. I mean, it's, you all have reached some pretty great scale for a European startup. I mean, your valuations, unicorn valuation, right? And you're sort of, reached a plateau, or not a plateau, but reached a benchmark that everybody here is at this point kind of only dreaming of for Georgia. So how did it start? How did this journey start?
Yeah, it's not rocket science, right? I think the speakers, by the way, have been absolutely amazing. I've been sat here today and learned so much. But I mean, and it's an idea, right? But there's so many people thinking of that idea in 2014. I think Uber, where a lot of us in the on-demand industry, there's a lot of on-demand companies, apps out there that I think Uber, we all got a lot to thank for. I mean, they really put the flag on the ground. And I saw what was happening with Uber and the way they were revolutionizing, taxi industries. And I thought it would be just amazing. Wouldn't it be amazing to just have an app that would bring you anything in your city, pretty much immediately in 30 minutes? And the vision is a little bit, if somebody's going to go and get something for you, from a store or a restaurant or, and is going to bring it to you for more or less the same that it costs you going yourself, why wouldn't you use that service? And I think that's the essence of Global. And it goes from an idea. I'm not new to this. I've been since the 90s in the tech space, been very lucky. So, I had some investors. And sort of at the end of 2014, some friends of mine said, hey, there's this kid just come back from the States, and he's got the same idea, and you should meet him, and he seems pretty sharp. So I met Oscar, and he was already a bit more advanced than me. He's got a bit more gas than me as well. He was 22 then, so for age-wise. And he was just doing a seed round with friends and family, and I really liked him. I said, Guy, I'll invest in this round, and why don't we just do this together? And I don't want to compete against you. And that's really how we started. And we launched, and we set up the company in the beginning of 2015, and we actually launched the first version, or our first order came in March. That was super quick. And we built the first version app, and it turned out to be an MVP because we had to rebuild everything. But we didn't consider an MVP when we launched. But that was key as well. And that's one of the things, one of our core values is gas and just executing really quickly.
Great. I think that's also a good lesson that the two of you had the same idea. And sometimes in the startup community, not so much now, but especially a few years ago, there's this really defensiveness. Oh, it's my idea, like nobody should come close. And really, it seems like a lot of times the best companies are more about finding the other people who share some common vision and add complementary skills, and you can't be too protective of ideas sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, I think in this long history of in the tech, I've never heard of somebody stealing an idea and building a massive company. I mean, they build a massive company because they've executed really well. And if they did steal an idea and somebody mentioned an idea in a dinner, the guy who mentioned the idea is probably never going to build that company's life anyway. He's just got something in his head. And we've all got great ideas, and we see things all the time. So I think ideas are all over the place, and and in fact, Glovo. I mean, it's not the only company that delivers everything in the world. I mean, if you go to Southeast Asia or Asia, China, I mean, these guys are Glovo on steroids. I mean, they'll bring you anything. They'll bring your kids from school at the same time as a pharmacy. If you want a massa, they'll bring you a massa on the same motorbike. They'll put 4 things on and your hot pizza. So, I mean, these guys are well ahead of us. And they're a reference as well, some of the stuff they're doing. So we executed really quick. We had a great idea. We had a, product market fit pretty automatically straight away. So we started getting traction, which was good. And we knew, and we were both very ambitious, and we knew that, we didn't want to just have a Spanish company. No, we really wanted to go as far as we could.
What was your first step outside of Spain?
We launched in Barcelona, which is actually a great city to do that. It's quite compact, a lot of people, dense. So I was very lucky to be in Barcelona. And then we launched in Madrid very quickly, which went skyrocket. I mean, Madrid is still one of our most largest cities, but also operationally wise, which is super important in our business. It works very well. Valencia was the 3rd city in Spain. And then we had an opportunity to acquire a very small startup in Milan, who were just missed this. They just came a little bit too late and wasn't getting funding, and they were having trouble. So we had an opportunity. So we just low-hanging fruit. We sort of did an equi-hire, hired the manager, who was extremely important for our Italian business the first 2 or 3 years, and quickly launched in Italy, pretty much a year after launching. And then we went to France, went to Paris, and more recently, Portugal. So Southern Europe was the focus the first year, 18 months, 2 years.
I like too that you mentioned this acqui-hire, so there was a competitor, and rather than, again, the sort of oppositional, sort of zero-sum approach, it's sort of like, oh, what's the best fit, right? Like, you have knowledge and relationships in Milan, so let's pull you in, let's help you make money and us make money. And is that kind of a value of Glovo, or you see that more?
Yeah, I mean, you can acquire a business, but if it's struggling or for whatever reason, I mean, either the team's very good and bring value, or you're just ending up buying a database of things. So you've got to maintain. And we have 3 tiers of our marketplace. We have the customer, like who we have to give a great service to, and is the one who's paying for the service or the goods. And we have our partners, which are super, super important. Building a relationship with them. We're a company that is a city company in the end, and we work with these stores, these restaurants, and maintaining that, and then of course we have the Glovers, who are obviously probably the most important piece, to actually go out and do the delivery. So we have to keep those guys happy. So having that thing, so that's why it's really important, local management. And we're in 26 countries now, and we set up offices and companies in every country we launch, and we have a strong local team. And I'm glad to see some of them here. And we give autonomy to the teams. So we're a local company, right, at the end of the day. So in Georgia, we have to execute very, very different to Lima, or very different to Istanbul, or very different to Barcelona or Lisbon. So we find really good local talent and really rely on them. And that's key, I think. And that's allowed us as well to execute generally much better than our competitors, who pretty much in almost all cases are much, much, much bigger than us. You've got companies like Uber, Deliveroo, Rappi in Latin America, who's been invested $1 billion by SoftBank. So we're competing against some giants.
And so up against that billion, how much capital have you all brought in?
So we've raised 300 million so far, which sounds like a massive figure. But really, we're still tiny, right? I mean, we competed against Uber Eats in, I think, 19 markets. And look how much they've raised, and look at the valuation, and look at the engineering team they have, and their know-how, and the clever people there. So, and the good thing is, we managed to beat them in most of those markets. So we're tiny. 300 is a lot, but in our business, it's actually not that much. And but also, it's a blessing in disguise, and we're finding that as the market's changing now. We've all read about WeWork, even Uber's valuation. And some of these companies, they're really starting to look at, guys, you have to show me profitability. And having had less money, we've had to operate leaner, right? I can't remember the exact figure, but I think it took us 30 million investment to reach the same amount of orders that Deliveroo needed 300 million to get to the same number. So it's made us lean. And as this dynamic's changing, I think it's putting us in a good position to really be profitable sooner. Because we've had to by far. I mean, I would have loved to have all their money. I'm not making a mistake. We're just not like, no, don't give me that. But now looking back, I mean, it's made us a better internal company, I think.
So I was curious. You mentioned about the local autonomy on the country level. What does that look like relative to other folks like maybe Uber or other competitors? Are there big structural differences, or is it pretty similar in how it's deployed?
Yeah, I think they try and give autonomy a little bit. I mean, I've met a lot of the GMs of the competitors, and I know some of the the founders, and I think they try, but just by being the size they are, and the decision-making process, they move a lot slower, And also as their brand becomes huge and they're on the market, and especially in the stock market. I mean, Uber really can't make decisions locally that might affect them because it could affect the stock market, the share price. So they're limited, so it makes them move a lot slower, and that's our advantage, right? To get that. And I've been lucky because I was in a big company that grew very quickly, nothing in a different sector totally, and I had a boss and mentor. Now he's our chairman, and he clearly there's two ways of building a company. You can do it centric, where a lot of the control and processes are done centrally, and it's much more scalable. That if you imagine you have a central team, they just roll it, just repeat everywhere, and that's a right way as well. It's not a right and a wrong, right? And there's another way of giving superpower to the local teams, give them control of P&L, give them flexibility to make the decisions, and we chose the second one, luckily. And we had debates about it because there's a lot of rationale doing the first one, and that's been one of the big successes of making that decision that allows us to execute on the ground, do local things, adapt the product, adapt the marketing strategy sometimes as well, do things differently.
So sort of tailoring a bit more. So I was curious. You mentioned really that the core is execution, and a lot of people have ideas. A lot of people do some things. What is it that you all did in execution that was different than competitors who maybe didn't fare as well?
Well, in the beginning, it wasn't that strategic. It's great looking back saying, hey, we did this and that. There was a lot of gut feeling. Italy was a good example. We weren't really looking at the Italian market, and we got a call and just going for it, and not being scared. To be fair, I mean, we weren't struggling. So our Spanish business was showing that we were doing the right things. The growth was, so we knew we were onto something really, really magic. So to go to another country was a big step, but it was an easy opportunity, and then we realized, wow, we can do it in Italy. So let's do it somewhere else very quickly. And then we started really having an international vision of how to expand and where we thought we could win. No, at the end of the day, it's very competitive out there, and we're very clear that we want to go to markets where we think we can lead the market or be co-leader. We have an opportunity to be. There's a big advantage in our industry to be leader or one of the top two. Once you're third or further down, it's pretty tough.
And so, what was it like making the decision to come to Georgia? It's not a huge market. The language is very different than a lot of markets you're in. How did that fit in the stack of places you wanted to go, and why do you end up here and not in some other places?
So we normally choose three criteria. A little bit. One of them is what's going on already in the ecosystem. So, is delivery exist? Does it exist? Through technology. That's the first one. Then we look at the unit economics, which is super important. The cost of the delivery, how much that's going to cost us versus the commission and the average ticket size, if that makes. And then are there going to be good partners out there? Can we partner with really good partners who are going to help us get good orders? So those are generally the three criteria, and then obviously the fourth one is key. Is it's not already too saturated. We probably wouldn't go to cities like London or the US right now because it's very competitive. So those are generally. So we got a team who looks at countries. That's where we're so spread all over the place. It looks a bit messy. A lot of people question that. I mean, we're in 4 continents. But we look at those criteria, and we have a team that sort of looks at countries and green lights them. And I wasn't actually involved in the first emails, but I think what happened here was we were looking at this space. We're green lighting different countries in the region, and our GM, who's our GM today, I think reached out and said, and I think Oscar, I think he did an email with Oscar, and like within a week he was over, and we were pretty much making the decisions to launch here. So super strategic. You can see that.
But it highlights to me a little bit of what I sometimes see as the difference between like big corporate strategy and startup strategy, because when you have a lot of sort of mass, you can project more, you can specify strategic directions more, so on and so forth. But when you have less momentum in some way, it can be more pattern recognition or opportunity recognition. So is it in or is it out, as opposed to like, well, no, we said we were going to go after these three. So more flexible. So you mentioned the autonomy of the local teams. Like, what does that management look like on the local level? And sort of what is it that you look for in a sort of a country leader, and how does that similar or different from managing a startup or a corporate division in general?
Yeah, culture is super important. That's one of the things that, we're close to 1,500 employees worldwide and all over the place. And to keep culture at this size, I've rarely seen it, to maintain it, because it's inevitable, right? The more people you have, it's very difficult. So culture and core values are absolutely fundamental to Global, and we're lucky because the two founders coincide a little bit with a couple of, or at least 3 or 4 of them. No one's perfect. We got 5, and no one's got all 5, obviously, or at least not 100%. And so we that's really important. But having said that, I think one of the talks earlier was talking about personalities, right? Introverts, extroverts. I mean, we got GMs who are like extrovert, totally. We got GMs who are actually introverts. So it's actually not about that. And also there's cultural differences, right? I mean, the way even Ukraine, which is not that far away from here, the cultures. I mean, totally different the way people interact. I mean, that's one of the things I found here. I think the first night I was here, I was just, wow. People are so almost like Spain. The way you dialogue and the way you move your hands is like smooth and sweet. Sorry, but it's nice to see that, no? And there's other countries which is much more direct, and nothing's wrong with either. Nothing's better than the other. So that's why it's super important to not just put a GM or the team in a certain way. That I personally am really like introverts who've got great CVs, because they haven't been selling bullshit, right? To have that amazing CV is obviously done by work. They've been a story doer, not a storyteller, which is a great thing to have.
Great. So, how would you characterize the main challenges of the company currently? A lot of times when you start a company, there's certain challenges that you face, and eventually you hit an inflection point, and maybe some of those are different challenges. And I'm curious, as you've gotten to the size that you are and the maturity that you are, what are your challenges now?
Well, our biggest challenge has always been, it seems like we've raised a lot of money, and we have, but it's been fundraising. It's every round has been very, very difficult. I think that's partly because we're a small Spanish startup. I think if we were born in Silicon Valley or London, I think it would have been a bit easier. Most VCs are generally a little bit like sheep. They follow the leader. So if there haven't been a major success, which we can talk about Georgia later, there hasn't been a major success, unicorn or something in the country, then it's difficult to convince that we're going to be the first. So fundraising has always been very difficult. There was one, I think it was our C round, our Series C, and I think we got 99 no's and 2 yeses. The 2 yeses came at the end, obviously, because we had, and that's true, and it's been super tough, and I think it will continue, because like I said, we seem we're very big, and it's incredible, the volume of the business today, but we're still tiny compared to our competitors, and more than they take out from you. Some of these projects are totally different, and so I haven't really invested in anything in 5 years. I did have a little investment at the beginning of this year in a company that I was mentoring the founders. I really liked the project; they're a really cool team, and they were doing a round, and then I wasn't going to do anything, and then I just, I'd be saying, if this company's ever worth anything, you help them in the beginning, so I just put a little ticket, but I'm not interested in investing. I'm full on global. It takes up 160% of my time.
Yeah, so wait till you make some exit if you do, and then do that. So going back to the sort of the other side of the table, how did you first raise money, and what did you have to do along the way to demonstrate that you were investment worthy?
So we did a seed round right at the beginning with just with our deck and our idea, and we're already starting to build the first version of 140K from friends, fools, and family. And we launched in March that year, and we quickly got traction. So already pretty much 2 months into launching, which is very unusual because not that much metrics you can get in a couple of months. But we decided to do our real seed round, and so we went to the market. I've been around for quite a while in Spain, so pretty much most of the investors know me or pretty much know the ecosystem. And I was going, and I put quite a high valuation on the company, which is unheard of in Spain at that time, and all the investors or traditional investors were saying, that's impossible, you're not worth that, this isn't Silicon Valley or something. So I thought, shit, I'll do let's do some crowdfunding. So I went to a crowdfunding platform, and we actually raised 300K in 4 days, which was a record in Spain at the time, I think. And then what happened, which is great, crowdfunding generally it's quite easy to get investors. They're small tickets, and it doesn't sound nice, but it's like low-educated investors, so they just invest on the idea. They don't. So it's quite generally, if you've got a good product, it's quite easy to get investment. It's good, but so it's not. They don't bring that much value. Normally with an investor, you'd like them to bring not just money, but also know-how and help you in the future. But it was but what that achieved is all of a sudden we did that, and all the guys I was speaking to who were questioning the valuation, everything, suddenly started calling us saying, hey, I want to get in. Am I out? So we ended up doing quite a big seed round that summer, at the end of that summer. So that worked out well. And then the next round, which was our Series A, we focused it in Spain with the top Spanish VCs, and we were very lucky that a VC called Sacha, which Bea, the founders, helped us so much. So we said, and then the size of the company and the size of the round started getting bigger, so you really have to go outside of Spain. There's not enough large VCs, and that's when Rakuten and Cathay, which is a Chinese-French fund, and then since they're Lakestar and Delivery Heroes. So we've got a long list of quite heavy investors. Amrest, which is one of the biggest, I think it's the biggest publicly traded European restaurant owner company in Europe, Polish. So we've got a range of investors. It hasn't been easy, but we're pretty happy, and they help us a lot.
So, but it would have been easier if you were in Silicon Valley, huh?
It would have been easier, but also, there's so much competition there, right? And also, talking about lean, to get a really good engineer, it must be nearly impossible in a startup in Silicon Valley. It's got so much competition. You got to pay them a fortune. So you just start up with 5 really good engineers. Just start thinking you need at least 5 million just to get these guys on board. So I think it's got good things and bad things. We're fortunate. There's a lot of luck, right, in this. I'm sitting here now, but we could have so easily failed and no one would have even heard of Globos. So there's a lot of luck of being there. I think Barcelona was lucky. We got, getting really good talent engineering that you can acquire. Now we're raising the bar. We want 300 engineers in the next 12 months, and it's difficult to find really good engineers who are willing to move to Barcelona. So it's still tough. But so I think it's easier to fund, but to really mark a difference and to do stuff in Silicon Valley, it must be difficult. It must be hell. I've never founded a company there. I know a lot of people in Silicon Valley, but I've never actually done it. But I would imagine, to me, I probably would like to do it somewhere else, a little bit easier.
So one of the things when we were talking about this discussion that came up is sort of the European, the nature of being a European startup and how it might be different than Silicon Valley or some other places. What to you is the soul of being a European startup?
Yeah, I think this is super important, and especially in Glovo's business. So a good example is regulation is very, very important for us now, and Europe is generally hyper-regulated. I'm so glad to see that there's a liberal attitude here and a get up and go and making things easy. It's very unique. Please realize what you have. It's not like that. It's not like that outside. And I think you might have read on the news, gig workers, flexible, the future of work. There's a massive debate worldwide about that. So regulation is super important. And I think being a European company, especially, we're very well aware that our grandparents fought a lot for social rights, right? There's not, you can generally have healthcare, you generally, so there's, and different to maybe more aggressive economy like the US or other places. So I think European companies have more purpose about it. They believe that. I do. I believe that our riders, I want to pay a little bit more if I can and give them more social rights, more protection. If they have an accident and can't work for 2 weeks, well, they should have some income. That type of thing, I think, is core in our DNA. It's in the founders, but I think it's because we're European and we really believe that, that it's not everything, one-sided, which in a lot of economies it is in Asia. It's pretty. So that's why I think purpose is very important for European companies. I think generally founders have a lot more purpose about them than maybe more aggressive. It's not a criticism; it's just different, right?
So along the lines of the gig economy and stuff, what do you see the future of work being, or the future of jobs, say, like 20 years out, 30 years out? What do you think making a living looks like in the world?
I know what I'd like it to be, and I'd like it to be. And I think obviously flexible work, multitasking is part of us. The kids out there, you can see they're able to do 10 things at the same time. I'm lucky if I can do one. So I think what I envision is probably more freelance work, but with more protection, right? Most freelance regulation was probably devised for white collar workers, businessmen, lawyers, who've got a high income, and they don't have that flexibility. It makes economical sense sometimes to be freelance and run the. And it wasn't really thought of for blue collar worker, that's the big trend now. And obviously, if the regulation was thought for a lawyer, well, they don't probably need, but they can get their own private insurance, they can get their own protection, they can afford that, whereas these guys can't. So, what probably is going to happen, and I hope, is there'll be some sort of future where there's fixed labor contracts with all the rights and everything. I think a lot of people want that. They want that security, they want that guarantee, and that's absolutely fine. And there'll be other people who just want flexibility, want to change jobs, want to move around. I mean, we've built this thing called Global Pass, short for passport. And now we're allowing a Glover, let's say in Italy, if he wants to go to work in Barcelona for 2 weeks, he can just get up and take his bicycle and join the platform. That's fantastic, imagine. I mean, you can, so I think that's where I'd like it to go, but not just, allowing people to work with. I think the protection side of things for blue collar workers is absolutely important. And it's our obligation as companies and I think as states as well to give them that protection in some way or other. In our case, we've got a private security for worldwide, which covers all regions. It's actually not that useful in some countries because they're already covered by the Social Security. But in others, because again, we're in Africa, we're in Middle East, we're in Latin America, sometimes the Social Security systems are very new, so they're not advanced. So we've got our own insurance system which covers them.
Great. I have a couple more questions. One is, who was the most important mentor in your career? Like, was there anyone who really stands out as having sort of clicked you into a different mode, or what would you say about your experience with learning from people?
Probably, I've had a couple. I had a part in my first project. It was actually like a Yahoo type portal. We had a bunch of services in the 90s, and it turned out to be the largest Spanish-speaking portal of the time. We grew very quickly in Latin America. We had a free email search, homepages, classifieds, chat. So we had all these services, and we grew really quickly. And we sold to our competitor, which was a New York-based company, who had a lot more money than us, but had like a third of our traffic. So we were really good at generating. And my partner there was a good mentor. Not so much in personality, because she's pretty aggressive, but more that he was really thinking big. And that was the first time. So I'd been 3 or 4 years, I'd built a software company as well. And his vision of, wow, you can just really be big. That was probably one. And I worked with him, and he's a really excellent guy. And then I was in the gaming industry for a while. My boss, who's now our chairman, a guy called Neil, he's a great manager, charismatic, which is super important. But not only that, he delegates and really trusts. And he ended up, after that, funnily enough, running Uber's business internationally. So he launched after the US, pretty much launched I don't know how many countries. And he was then, and I remember calling him in the summer of 2014 when I had the idea of Global and said, hey, I think I'm going to do this. And he said, woof, 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 woof. I'll tell you as Uber or I'll tell you as a friend. And he said, you're going to find some massive competitors out there. And I said I wasn't scared of failing, so I didn't mind failing, which was good. And anyway, he ended up leaving a year or so later, Uber, and then he had to wait a year because of, and now he's our chairman. And with Oscar, I've got probably the two best guys I've ever worked with in my life together. So that's super proud.
That's very critical. So there's a closing question, and I'm hoping you'll be able to stay a little bit after and talk individually with folks. But just, sort of knowing your experience, from Barcelona and looking at the Georgian context, what advice would you give to people in this room who maybe aspire to creating something significant in the startup world?
Okay. So the first thing, don't listen to me. No, and this is a bit of a joke, but it's not actually. First of all, in my limited career, I've probably seen a limited amount of segments, right? And all your startups are going to be something I probably don't have a clue about the business, the industry. It's not one size fits all. Forget that. There's different ways of building different businesses. And so I listen to guys like, 500 startups. This guy has seen, he's probably seen, anything you're going to present to this guy, he's probably seen 5 of them or 10 of them or 200 of them. This guy knows, not me. So that's what you should listen to. And then traits that I think are absolutely important, which probably 3, 4, 3. Let's see, persistence, no? Be persistent. You're going to find so many hurdles to get over every day. You just got to keep going. And these are the guys who succeed, who just keep going. These guys who keep, the ones who talk to you all the time with the same idea and they're just persistent. You have to, you can't give up. The team, surround yourself with people who complement you. You don't want all the people the same, personality-wise, and surround yourself with super good people, no? I always surround myself with people who do things better than me, which some people can be difficult, some is easy. But, you find people who know more than you that complement you. And then I think the third is focus. Like, less is more. Look, Glovo is a good example, right? We've got, got this great app, we've got this UX, we do this great marketing campaigns and everything. But at the end of the day, if we don't get the service right? If we don't live up to our demand of delivering when we say we'll deliver and become reliable, all the rest is not worth anything, right? There's no point. So focus is on the key elements of the business and what you should focus, because many people do too many things, right? Try and get everything perfect. And so I think those would be the 3. I mean, there's a lot of other little ones. No, none of this is easy. Luck, for sure. You need to be a bit lucky. I'm super lucky with this project and generally my internet career.
Yeah, but put yourself in positions where you can get lucky.
But you need it. I mean, a lot of people do that as well. Luck is an important part of it. And yeah, you can help and you can learn and you can stop making the same mistakes. And playbooks, which is a bit of that what you're talking about. We build playbooks so that when we learn something about launching a country, and it gets better all the time as well. So you learn things and then you can replicate. So, Georgia, for example, has grown, I think, 10 to X what Barcelona grew in the same amount of time, right? And why is that? Well, it's true we have a little bit more money, so we can do marketing, but at the end of the day, we've learned so many things and errors in the beginning that we build a playbook. So the GM, has a bit of feedback from the center, and then he can adjust it and adapt it, but he can take good learnings. So playbooks are always good, and pretty much for any process in the business, not just launching, but just being able to replicate things so it becomes scalable.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Sacha.
Thank you.